Well, hello and welcome to the Accountability Lab's quarterly impact call for the end of June 2015. We are going to talk very briefly around three key areas of our work in the last quarter and update you as much as we can, and then throw it open for any ideas or questions, and hope that we can get everything done in about 15 minutes. Keep it short and sweet. My name is Blair. I'm the Executive Director of the lab. And I would like to tell you about, firstly, our country work over the last 3 months. There's been a lot going on. We work heavily in Nepal, of course, and the earthquake there towards the end of April, just over 2 months ago, was difficult, of course, caused a lot of issues, a lot of suffering and damage on the ground. Luckily, our team are all okay, and we mobilised immediately after the first of the earthquakes to create what we call mobile citizen help desks, which are groups of our volunteers in all of the worst affected districts who are helping to gather information from citizens about what happened and their needs, and also to transmit information to them about how to navigate the aid process and fix problems that they face. And now we are beginning to think about how we can follow the money or understand the flows of aid and government money that are going down from the central level to the district and the village level to track that money and make sure that it's spent in an effective and accountable way. And this has been a very successful process. Our survey and feedback mechanism is feeding into the much larger international response now, helping to inform that on an ongoing basis, and make sure that it can adapt and try and solve problems in real time. So that's fantastic. We're now looking to roll it out a little further, work with an organisation called Internews on some rumour tracking to make sure that people understand the reality of the situation and the rumours that can be difficult don't disrupt the process. And we've solved now, I think, about 4,000 problems in about 250 different communities across Nepal. So lots of progress, which is fantastic. Happy to talk more about that in Q&A. In Liberia, also, things are moving very quickly. We have had a very busy few weeks this month. Our film school hosted an Ebola film festival with all of the films that were made by students over the last few months around the Ebola crisis and the accountability issues involved with that, which was very well attended. Lots of very good feedback. And now they are going around the various counties of Liberia showing these films to rural communities, creating discussions around some of the issues, which include everything from why the healthcare system wasn't able to deal with the crisis, to stigma issues for survivors, to accountability and corruption of funds. So that's been a fantastic way to build conversations around some of these issues and help people have their voices heard. We've been working in the arts. More broadly, we just hosted last week an accountability arts festival in Monrovia, which is part of our larger Arts for Change efforts with some of our accountpreneurs, and hosted about 100 people at an exhibit with artworks that depicted various aspects of life in Liberia and some of the accountability issues that people face, which created further discussion around these kinds of things, and again has helped people find their voice in a way that they understand. And we have also been working closely in the last month or so with our community justice teams on community mediation at the local level, outreach to communities, again, around some of the conflicts that came out of the Ebola crisis and the trust and legal and accountability issues that those created. We are working now towards a larger meeting of all of the stakeholders in Liberia at the beginning of August around community justice and how to take this forward. So plenty of movement on the ground. In Pakistan, where we are beginning to investigate further work, I spent several weeks in April meeting plenty of people, working with our new staff member Fayaz on the ground to build the relationships, to think about how we can replicate the Accountability Lab's approach in a new context. And we are now registering the lab in Pakistan. We've created a local board of advisors, and we've begun to raise some money from the Making All Voices Count initiative in particular, to begin our work, which would replicate in form what we've been doing in the other countries in terms of creating an incubator that can support accountpreneurs to develop creative ideas for accountability. And the place we may start is in Rawalpindi, which is a town outside Islamabad, looking at some local government reform efforts, working with civil society as the first accountpreneur in our incubator there. So that's very exciting. A different context for us, much bigger, of course, and that presents some challenges that we haven't faced before. The context is a difficult one, but we're excited about what we might be able to do, and have a very good team on the ground already who can help us do that. The second area that I'll touch on briefly is partnerships. We've continued to try and leverage our work through partnerships with key organisations. The two in particular that we've been working on in the last couple of months are with the World Economic Forum, where we are now on the what they call the Global Agenda Council on anti-corruption and transparency, which is allowing us to inform some of the larger policy level debates with our ground level experience and understanding, which is fantastic. We are going to be working with them on a process to try and benchmark and measure values within organizations over the next 3 or 4 months. And we went to their meeting in South Africa and talked a lot about our work in Liberia in particular, and on illicit financial flows and the impact that they have on development, which was extremely valuable. The other partnership we've been working on closely in the last month or so is with the Bmw Foundation, who are organising a series of roundtable discussions with governance as an overarching theme over the next year, and we are advising them on how that can be integrated, who should be included in those discussions, and what the outcomes might be. So we'll keep you updated on all of that. The third partnership I might mention is with the Hague Institute for the Innovation of Law, HIIL, which is helping us with the meeting in Liberia I mentioned around community justice and understanding the relationship between formal and informal justice in contexts like Liberia, and the broader rule of law issues as they relate to accountability and integrity. And finally, in terms of outreach, we've been doing a great deal of work to make sure that our voice is heard in the right ways, in the right places. We were lucky enough to be published around some thinking on Nepal in the New York Times this month. We have been engaging, as always, our community on social media. We hosted an event at the OpenGov Hub with Shaz Kabele, who's written a book about how non-violent social movements can support anti-corruption efforts. And in the local press in Liberia and Nepal in particular, we've been trying to put our word out, shape the debate a little bit, and create this discussion around accountability that is the first step towards building a larger culture of integrity. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you for listening. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to answer them, and my colleague Anne-Sophie is here too, and would be happy to talk further on some of these things. Alan is here with us too, Alan Hudson from Global Integrity. Alan?
So, quick question. So firstly, just to say that I'm sure I'm not alone in having been very impressed with how the Accountability Lab has responded to the earthquake in Nepal. It's been great to get the updates, the regular updates from what the team has been doing there. I wondered, Blair, if you could say a little bit more. You said, I can't remember whether you said it was 2,000 problems or was it 2,000?
4,000.
4,000, even more. Whether you could give us a little bit of an idea of what sort of things those problems are.
Yeah.
Please.
Absolutely. And I should probably explain a little bit more about how the citizen help desks are actually working. So we mobilised volunteers into groups of 10 in each of the 10 worst affected districts in Nepal. They are led by a district coordinator who is a local journalist, and are collecting data on a daily basis around critical issues related to the earthquake response. What problems citizens are facing, what they've received, what they haven't received, how some of the aid is being distributed, and so on and so forth, along with a lot of demographic data, so that we can analyse all of this. They give that data to the district coordinators every day. The district coordinators then give it to our team in Kathmandu. We're using a tool called Kobo Toolbox, which is an app that the volunteers are using through tablets that can gather data and then upload it when they can get online. Not all of these places have very good internet access. And so the problems that are coming out of this, that they are helping to solve, include, for example, in the initial phase, people who had lost their families or had been separated, trying to reconnect them, people who needed healthcare but weren't quite sure how to navigate the healthcare system. In many cases, for example, people are unable to read and write, but they need to fill in forms to get access to a hospital and be admitted. So the volunteers have been helping them do that, helping connect communities that weren't receiving the aid that they needed with some of the providers of that kind of aid, or where people were receiving aid but it was of the wrong kind. They were receiving food, for example, where perhaps they needed tin sheeting for roofs for their buildings, working with them to raise their voice, to make sure that the local officials knew about this, and so on and so forth. So it's those kinds of problems. And as I said, all of this information now feeds into the larger interagency feedback mechanism, which is coordinated by OCHA, the UN's Humanitarian Affairs Agency, to try and ensure that on a daily basis, the larger international response is adaptable and can respond to these kinds of problems itself on a larger scale.
Very good, thank you. If I may, one other quick question. What happened at the donor conference last week? I heard that the targets were not quite reached. Are you able to say any more about that? Was that expected? Was it expected that the targets wouldn't be reached? Is that what always happens? What does that mean in practice?
Yes. I think overall, actually, the donor conference was seen as a success. You're right that the targets, the sort of stretch targets for what the Nepal government thought that it would need, which was about $6 billion, 6 trillion, sorry, wasn't met. No, 6 billion. It was about 4 billion that was committed by the donors. But what did happen was some of the donors came in at much higher levels than were expected. The Indians, for example. And I think it was, although I wasn't there, the coordination of it happened relatively well, and the donors have delineated clear areas of responsibility that in theory should lead to something of a coordinated financing response. The government is in the process of setting up an agency, a specialised agency within the government itself that will deal with all of this. That has the danger of being politicised, and capacity is going to be an issue. But we'll have to see, what that means in terms of implementation going forwards.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. If there aren't any other questions, then we'll let you go. Have a great morning. Be in touch with us. If you have any further ideas, follow us on social media. on Twitter and Facebook, and please drop us an email if we can help or partner, or if you have any other ideas for how we can improve our work. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again very soon.